The biggest prison in the world isn't made of bars and steel, it's made of certainty. And that certainty is the reason you feel stuck, hitting the same invisible wall again and again. It's a comfortable prison, a familiar prison, but it's a prison nonetheless. And most of us don't even know we're living inside of it. But here's the good news. There is a key. It's not a grand, complicated thing. In fact, by the end of this, I'll show you a simple 3-step filter that acts like a key to help you see beyond your own walls. To understand how easily the walls of this prison can shatter, let's inject a single drop of doubt into a moment of perfect certainty. Picture this in your head. You've just left your house, you're halfway to work, and it's one of those rare perfect mornings. The sun is out, your coffee is just right, the music is hitting perfectly. You feel completely in control and on top of your world. But then, bam, a single thought appearing out of nowhere that sends a jolt of ice through your veins. Did I turn off the stove? Suddenly, the perfect morning evaporates. Your chest tightens, your mind starts racing, flipping through the last 10 minutes in your kitchen. You were certain everything was fine a moment ago, utterly certain. But now, that certainty has shattered into a million pieces of gut-wrenching doubt. That feeling right there, that sudden, shocking transition from absolute certainty to a complete panic, that's the feeling we're going to talk about today. But not for the stoves, for our entire worldview. We all spend so much of our lives building a fortress of what we know. We gather facts, we form opinions, we pick our teams. Therefore, we feel safe, we feel solid. But what if that fortress has no windows? What if the safety you feel is actually just the quiet of a prison cell? The real problem isn't our ignorance. We can't all know everything. The real problem is our ignorance of our ignorance. It's not knowing that we don't know. This mental prison is so fundamental that one of the oldest stories we have is basically a horror story about it. Imagine a group of people who have lived their entire lives chained inside a dark cave. Behind them, a fire is burning. And people walk past this fire, carrying objects that cast flickering shadows onto the wall in front of their prisoners. For the prisoners, this is it. This is their entire reality. The shadows aren't just shadows, they are the world. They become experts on shadows. They name them, they predict their patterns, they argue about which shadow is the most important. Sounds a lot like arguing on social network, doesn't it? But they build their whole lives around these dim, flickering shapes, and they are content. But the truly devastating part of Plato's story isn't that they're ignorant of the real world outside. It's that they have no idea they're even in a cave at all. They think their tiny, flickering window on reality is their entire universe. This is a funny little quirk of the human mind. The less we know about something, the more confident we are that we are experts. We become the kings and queens of our own little shadowed kingdoms. So what happens when one of the prisoners breaks free? What if they make it out of the cave and into the blinding sunlight? They see trees, they see the sky, they see colors they couldn't even have imagined. They realize the shadows were just pale imitations. Overwhelmed with this incredible truth, they go back into the cave to tell everyone, "Hey guys, you're not going to believe this. What we're looking at isn't real." How do you think the others are going to react? Are they going to celebrate? Do they ask questions? No. They think he's a madman, a threat, because to consider what he's saying requires them to accept that their entire life, their expertise, their very reality is a lie. And that is deeply painful. So they often meet this new information with resistance, even anger, even hostility. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To realize that our own certainty can be the highest wall we ever build. If you're new here, I'm Denis and I like to explore everyday things like this. These little mental traps with a curious mind. Because I believe the cracks in our own caves is where the real adventure begins. And every adventure needs a compass. This 3-step filter is that compass. A tool to gently check the walls of our own cave. Step 1 is the simplest and paradoxically the hardest. Assume you're actually in a cave. That's it. Just start with that assumption. Not in a cynical or self-critical way, but with a sense of playful curiosity. Just for today, walk through the world with a gentle background hum of a thought that says, what I see might not be the whole picture. This one little shift moves you from a position of I'm right to this is what I see from my spot in the room. Instantly create space for something new to enter. Step 2, find the outsider's question. Once you've accepted you're in the cave, you can start getting curious about what's outside that cave. The people in the cave only needed one thing to start their journey, a question they couldn't answer about the shadows. Therefore, the next step is to actively look for a different vantage point. This doesn't mean finding someone to argue with on the internet. It means finding people who see the world differently and getting curious about the question they are asking. Instead of defending your worldview, you ask, what makes you see it that way? Or what shadow am I missing from over there? The goal is to collect perspectives, not to win a debate. And the third and final step of the filter is this. Look for the feeling, not the fact. Remember that stove-on feeling? That jolt? We have an emotional version of that too. And in your body's built-in cave detector, when we hear a new idea that contradicts our own beliefs, what happens in your body? Do you feel your chest tighten? Do you feel a flash of heat? Maybe your jaw clenches and you find yourself rehearsing a rebuttal before the other person has even finished talking. When you feel that defensiveness, most of us think it's a signal that we're right and we need to fight back. But that physical reaction, that's not your logic defending you. That's your cave trying to keep you warm and safe. What if it's the exact opposite? What if that feeling isn't a shield but a signpost? And right there, bam, that is the marker. This is a giant glowing neon arrow pointing directly at the edge of your cave. It's your body's alarm system saying, pay attention. There is something new and unknown here. Most of us treat that feeling as a threat. But what if we treated them as an invitation, a signpost pointing towards growth? So, to recap the filter. 1, assume you're in a cave. 2, get curious about other people's questions. And 3, use the feeling of your own resistance as a compass pointing you towards the edge of your understanding. The goal isn't to escape the cave forever and know everything. That's impossible. We all have our own caves. The goal is simply to know that you are in one, to stay aware of these walls, to feel for a breeze that hints at something more outside. The most important and liberating thought you can have isn't, I have all the answers. I wonder what's out there. Until next time, stay playfully curious.
Stay playfully curious.